Hello and welcome to this special show on Mastercard presents Times Network Living Room Conclave India Financial Series. Now, over the last many years, India has digitized rapidly. I mean, everybody right from the top of the pyramid to the bottom of the pyramid has been touched by digitization and their lives have been empowered. People have seen a lot of benefits, but on the other side, on the flip side, there have been rising concerns of cybersecurity issues. So this very special discussion, today's episode is going to be talking about the rise in the cybersecurity issues, what are some of the concerns that need to be looked at, and most importantly, what are some of the measures that need to be taken to control these increasing cybersecurity concerns. I'm joined by a panel of experts. Allow me to introduce them. First up, I have with me Mr. Sekhri. He's the Vice President, Cyber and Intelligence Solutions at Mastercard. I have Mr. Pawan Duggal. He's a cybercrime and a Supreme Court lawyer. And I have Mr. Manish Agarwal. He's the head of credit intelligence and control at HDFC Bank. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here today. Mr. Sekhri, I'll start off with you. You know, with India's push for digitization, it's bearing fruit across the sectors, like I said in the introduction also. But when it comes to protecting sensitive information, and that is really a key point, but when it comes to that, to protecting sensitive information as well as critical systems, what do you think should be the approach?
So thank you, Sumit, for having me on this panel, which is focused on such an important topic, which is cybersecurity and the impact to ecosystem. Just to put in some context, right, the rapid increase in digital payments in the last 2 years has been enormous due to the pandemic. And with that, there has been a rise in the number of cyber attacks and ransomware attacks as well. And just to give some numbers, right, the Internet of Things and the connected device that we talk about, there are 12 billion devices that are connected today, which generate around 2.5 quintillion bytes of data on a daily basis, right, which means that all of it has happened, and 90% I would say has happened in the last 2 years. So as they say, security is as strong as the weakest link. This is the right time and the most important time, you know, to ensure that all the critical data and the vital assets that we have are safe and secure, so that, you know, we are able to maintain the trust and confidence of the digital ecosystem. And some of the thoughts that I have how we can do that is one, definitely we all talk about zero architecture. That is a very, very critical field that we need to look into. The second is the use of effective technology, you know, which is the AI and ML capabilities that are available today to us in the market. That will definitely help us circumvent this issue of cybersecurity. And thirdly, what I also feel is that data is extremely important, right? Because now we have enormous data, as I told you, 2.5 quintillion bytes that gets generated every day. It is very, very important that we use this data to our advantage. Some of the identifiers that are now available to us, like device ID, location, spend patterns, etc., and then make, you know, an assessment on how to manage the vulnerability in the ecosystem. And lastly, I would also say that collaboration and transparency will be equally very important across stakeholders, so that we are able to mitigate this altogether.
Right, Mr. Sekhri. Mr. Duggal, same question to you.
India currently is undergoing a huge policy vacuum. India does not have any dedicated data protection law. We also don't have any dedicated law on privacy nor on cybersecurity. So in this regard, when we want to talk about protection of sensitive personal data, it is extremely relevant that we must have legal frameworks. Currently, the only thing that we currently have is the Indian Information Technology Act 2000, which is Indian cyber law. And we only amended it once in the year 2008 after the Mumbai attacks. But when one looks at the Information Technology Act 2000, there is a particular provision, which is section 43A, dealing with sensitive personal data. Primarily, the IT rules 2011 have defined reasonable security practices to include an ISO 27001. So if you're handling or processing sensitive personal data, you are required to implement and maintain reasonable security practices and procedures. And if you fail to do so, and as a result of your failure, some legal entity suffers damage, then you are entitled to pay unlimited damages by way of compensation to the affected party. But it is just one single provision. We require a complete legal framework because today Indians are doing all their work in the digital ecosystem. There is their health data is on the digital ecosystem, their financial data, their personal data, so much so that now Indians are undergoing a new revolution. I call it the Great Indian Vomiting Revolution, where Indians are vomiting a lot of their personal, professional, social data on the internet. And a lot of that is also sensitive personal data without even understanding the legal ramifications for the same. So all eyes will be now on the new version and the new avatar of the data protection law, because the Joint Parliamentary Committee has given its report to the Personal Data Protection Bill, recommending that the government expands the scope of the data protection law to include not just personal data, but also non-personal data. But clearly, India needs to set deterrent examples, because today, personal data of Indians is lying everywhere around. And it's just open to any hacker, to any stakeholder at the click of a button to not just access the sensitive personal data, but also to go ahead and use it.
Okay, thank you for that point, Mr. Duggal. Mr. Agarwal, same question to you. What can be done? What are your thoughts, sir?
So, first of all, thank you, Sunit, for having me here, and thanks to other panelists, Mr. Duggal and Mr. Sekhri. So, I think we have to see it from a few different perspectives. What we are talking here is from the cybersecurity perspective, and how a common man can be, he does not fall prey to these fraudulent transactions. So if you open any newspaper today, you will find that somebody compromised something, okay, somebody downloaded something, and suddenly somebody's bank account got wiped out completely. So how is it happening? If you see it very closely, okay, it's a very old saying, okay, where if you cannot penetrate the system, you penetrate the individual. And what's happening in today's scenario, specifically around all of us, is that the fraudsters are exploiting the vulnerability of an individual human mind. So you would not find that some system, and I'm not talking specific to any particular bank or an institution. If you see the entire digital payment framework that we have today, okay, it is one of the best framework and the best and the secured framework. So you will not have a scenario where the system has been penetrated. What's happening is an individual customers, and how they are going to get and how they are getting impacted is a very, very simple thing. These are the social engineering techniques. Frauds or the cheats were in the ecosystem even at that point of time, and they are here also. As we have gone digital, they have also gone digital. Okay, so what is needed? The needed is a very, very simple thing, that the way the digitization has happened, the way the revolution, and I won't call it a evolution, the way revolution in a digital space has happened in India, it is very important that the customer follows certain basic rules.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Agarwal, I will come back to you on that point in a bit, but I'll just move ahead with the conversation. I'll move this to Mr. Duggal. So, one concern has always been about data security. I think that's been one of the primary concerns, in fact. And now with the rise in cyber crimes, it's become pertinent to protect through policy and technological changes at different levels. I want to come to you, sir, Mr. Duggal, on the role of the government here. How do you see this happening in India? What is happening from the government point of view, and the role of businesses in helping this? What's your viewpoint on that?
Well, let's realize it that during COVID-19, one irreversible process has begun, which is that the golden age of cybercrime has begun. And this golden age of cybercrime is going to be with us for the next many decades. Hence, all stakeholders have to join hands together in the direction of trying to fight not just cybercrime, but also cybersecurity breaches. But then you require an appropriate legal framework to deal with the same. You don't have a dedicated cybercrime law, nor a dedicated law on cybersecurity. Yes, you have amended the Information Technology Act in the year 2008 so as to incorporate some more wide coverage of cybercrimes as penal offenses punishable with imprisonment and fine. But the problem is in the way the IT amendments made almost all cybercrimes, barring 3 cybercrimes, as bailable offenses. With the result, the deterrence was thrown out of the window, because people would come out on bail, they would go ahead and destroy the relevant incriminating evidence against themselves, and we would then thereafter never have a cybercrime conviction in the said matter. Mind you, 2003 was the year when India got its first cybercrime conviction, in which I was the counsel for the complainant. From those days till 2008, but after 2009, there has been a drought of cybercrime convictions in the country. And as far as cybersecurity breaches are concerned, trying to prosecute them and trying to get the offender to book is itself a tall order because of the intrinsic problems of attribution and internet jurisdiction that's thrown up by the advent of newly emerging technologies, including the darknet. Today, a majority of Indians are using the darknet to launch all kinds of cybercrimes and cybersecurity breaches. And these are unfortunately not getting detected or made accountable in the sense that you cannot attribute it to a particular cyber actor. With the result that our cybercrime conviction ratio has gone for a big 6. Ultimately, I think the way we want to go forward is as follows. We need to, first of all, strengthen the existing legal framework on not just enhancing the coverage of cybercrimes, but also providing for deterrent punishment for cybercrimes. Number 2, we should effectively implement whatever the existing law is there on cybercrimes, which is a conjunction of both the Information Technology Act 2000 and the Indian Penal Code. Number 3, it's time now to come up with the more simplified rules pertaining to electronic evidence.
Thank you for that, Mr. Duggal. Mr. Agarwal, coming back to your earlier point, when you spoke about, how things have changed, important now, what can the common man, what can he or she do so that they can minimize these cyber crimes? What are the steps, what are the measures that they can take?
If you today see the script of the fraudsters which they are using, most of them are using the information which is readily available or available, it is called the open source intelligence. Okay, so it's readily available. For the fraudsters, he has to create a script so that he can do the social engineering fraud with the customers. And if you see, the scripts are created only on 3 parameters. Anything behind the script, either it will be greed, or it will be threat, or it will be help. Greed, sir, you have won a lottery. Okay, I'm just taking few examples. Okay, sir, we are going to give you this particular product. In the market, the cost of the product is 25,000. We are running an offer. You will get in 5,000 rupees. Right. So these are greed. Then threat. Sir, your electricity connection is going to disconnected by EOD if you do not pay. Right. Sir, your bank account will stop working if you do not update your this. Yeah. Okay, these are the threats. Help. And if you see today, you just go and search for any services, and the problem is that when we are doing or any search engine, when we are doing all these things and the information which comes in, okay, our reliance on that is so high that whatever number is put on that, we go and call. You would have seen multiple frauds, lot of even knowledgeable people, and you cannot say that it's only with the illiterate some. You will find that so many intelligent people, intellectuals, actors, we all have been defrauded. Yes. And how? They search for a certain number or a services. They identified a certain number, they correlated, okay, this is the number, probably I will call, and they made an advance payment, and suddenly the services were not delivered or the rented. So these are the items. So what is needed? So there is a one way of saying that, okay, boss, I will not do the digital transaction. That's not the solution.
Very true. So these are very simple points, but I think what the important thing is, this awareness has to come. I'll go ahead to Mr. Sekhri. So Mr. Sekhri, we spoke about what people can do, but let's talk on the technology front. How is artificial intelligence, how is machine learning being used to secure the payment system, and just what's happening at Mastercard in this with regards to this?
So rapid advancements have happened in digital technology, which has changed the way we shop, live and think. Now what has happened is that consumers today have more flexible options to make payments. Earlier it was the PIN-based payments. Now you have thumb-based payments, you have facial scan payments and other options that are being introduced by the BFSI sector to make the payments secure as well as convenient for the end user. And on that hand, artificial intelligence, I would say, is the most transformative technology that humans have developed, because it can help predict data. It can take enormous amounts of data and essentially make that data, using various algorithms, convert into insights. And on the other hand, machine learning basically looks at user behavior and more accurately, and basically gives the potential threats which are there and alerts to an individual. On the other hand, you will be surprised to know that 80% of breaches today are linked to weak passwords. And that's why strong authentication methods like passive biometrics and biometric authentication are very critical in today's day age and environment to prevent cyber attacks. At Mastercard, safety and security is of paramount importance to us. And we have something called as a connected intelligence approach, where we first authenticate the user using passive biometrics and artificial intelligence. And we determine that whether it's a good user versus a bad actor, is basically using insights like how the user is holding the phone, the typing speed of the user. And once we are able to authenticate the user effectively, then we basically use AI and ML capabilities to see if there is any malware or any anomaly in the behavior pattern of the user or the transaction that is being monitored. So essentially, I would say we map the entire interaction of the consumer to see and make sure that the transactions are secure, safe and convenient at the same time.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Mr. Sekhri. It's very important that we know of that as well. Mr. Agarwal, now coming to you again, there is this, there's always an approach and to ensure the protection of the sensitive information. So that is also today, I mean, it's been said so often, data is the new oil, etc., etc. So this information is really sensitive and that has to be protected really well. How do you sensitize the customer on that angle also? Because you've spoken about, not downloading an app or not sharing an OTP, but what about protecting sensitive information?
So I would say, Sunit, that the government is also doing a lot of work on creating awareness on this particular item. I don't know, in fact, the regulator, the banking regulator has sent multiple reiteration. They are running a full-fledged campaign, okay, where the biggest superstar of the country, is trying to educate the customers. In fact, couple of days back, if you would have observed, MeitY has come out with a specific circular where they requested that if you want to share the Aadhaar, then in what condition you should share or you should not share. So all these are the attempts, okay, to ensure that the data is secured, okay. And if I may step in the point of AI and ML, which we were speaking to Mr. Sekhri, okay, a very simple thing, these are very, very important tool. And today, if you ask me that AI and ML are going to reduce the false positive, that is the most important task. They will not only help us in identifying the frauds, but will the biggest benefit which is going to come is the reduction of a false positive.
Gentlemen, I just have time for one last question, kind of a closing comment. I'll come to all three, starting with you, Mr. Sekhri. So, how do you see the future unfolding, especially for India in this push towards digitization?
So, India's digital economy is booming, right? And the rapid adoption is due to smartphone penetration and the online commerce, which have led to this increase in digital drivers. However, with the digital transactions also increasing on one side, the cyber criminals are taking advantage of this, and India has emerged as one of the top 3 nations, for cyber attacks. And to ensure that India continues to grow towards and becomes a fully digital economy, cybersecurity, I feel, will have a great and a major role to play. Hence, it's very important that we continue to build awareness on the new threat vectors, especially for the small enterprises and the first-time users that are coming from Tier 3 and Tier 6 cities, because these are users who are doing transactions or payments for the first time. And if there is even a one breach incident which happens, it basically hampers the trust and security and the confidence in the ecosystem. That's why I would always say that it's not a single entity, it's a collaboration effort, and each and everybody in the ecosystem, be it the fintechs, the networks, the banks, the regulators, all of us will have to come together to ensure that we are able to collectively manage and address this issue and ensure the tenets of Digital India.
Mr. Duggal, your thoughts, same question. How do you see the future?
I see a very exciting future for India in the push towards digitization. First and foremost, COVID-19 has come in as a blessing in disguise because it's propelled far more adoption of the digitization process and of the digital ecosystem. Number two, today Indians are far more comfortable doing the transactions in the electronic ecosystem. So with new advent of technologies coming in, whether it's artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, quantum computing, it's a very, very bright future. Why? Because now you have huge number of humongous opportunities and business products that are now going to arise. Further, India just needs to do its homework right in terms of adequate policy and regulatory frameworks. So we should act quickly, not just amend the Indian cyber law, not just have detailed legal provisions on cybercrime, not just have detailed legislation on cyber security, but also have enabling legal frameworks even for these crypto assets and cryptocurrencies. Because at the end of the day, this is one big element or strain that I'm seeing on the landscape. And merely closing the eyes to the sun when it's midday is purely not a prudent idea. India needs to ensure that it does not miss the crypto bus during this ecosystem times. I think if we are able to put our respective works together, this could be a fantastic decade for India, where India could see a huge leapfrogging forwards. Already 2023, India is poised to become the most populous nation in the world, surpassing China as per a UN report.
Mr. Agarwal, coming to you for the last word, your thoughts on the way ahead.
So future is very, very bright, Smith. Okay, the way we see, it's a blue sky. Okay, our payment ecosystem is going to be the hallmark and an ideal and example for the world in a time to come. Okay, what is more important, it is our responsibility, and I'm sure all the stakeholders, whether it's a regulator, government, payment operators, network operators, etc., all are working towards this. And it is very important that this awareness piece is, with the help of the channels like you, it has to reach to the viewers, and they are requested to follow certain basics. In fact, if I can add it here, we at our bank have started certain awareness campaign. In fact, our objective is to educate the kids of a senior secondary school, of the graduate, because they are going to be the real evangelist. We have to make it a part of our education system. If we do that, we are going to have a safe, secure, agile and a faster digital ecosystem.
Absolutely. So very well said, Mr. Agarwal. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal. Thank you, Mr. Duggal. And thank you, Mr. Sekhri, for joining me here on Mastercard Presents Times Network's Living Room Conclave India Financial Series. It was a very thought-provoking, insightful discussion on the concerns around rising cybersecurity issues, but more importantly, what are some measures that can be taken to prevent this, to stop it, to control it. I'm sure you're taking back a lot from this discussion, as am I. Thank you so much for watching.